Yeah.
Oh yeah, much better. Here we go. It's your birthday.
Let's let's do it.
All
Fire
right,
away.
man. Chad Mom, welcome to episode 25 of Two Club Chumps. I cannot believe we've got you on. You're so gracious to come on, buddy. I mean, I know you're so busy doing interviews, getting ready for season two of really the first awesome golf show ever. Can I just say that? Is that too
Ah,
bold to say that?
you're too kind, Brock. You're too
I mean,
kind.
I like it. Look, I know Golf Channel, this and that, but like, so our good friend Gareth West at Lakeside, when I became friends with him, whatever years ago, he's like, you have to get into to Formula One. And so I got into that and I'm like, I've never seen a show done like this. Like I feel engaged. And then you and I met and you're like, just wait till you see Full Swing. And I have to say, you re-energized me in the golf world, getting to know the inside scoop. And everyone's going to ask me, how in the world did you get into this project? How did you land it? I mean, you just nailed it the first season. Like, what's your background to get into the Full Swing world?
So I first met the PGA Tour execs. I've been in like the digital media world before I got into the entertainment business, and I worked at a company called Vox Media, and I ran all of our like digital programming.
Okay.
I've been a golf nut since I was a little kid. My dad played golf. He was an Air Force pilot. The joke about the Air Force bases is they put the runway in first, and then the second thing is the golf course. When they build a new base somewhere, and
Wait,
it's
but
like,
pause on that real quick. My wife's a Navy pilot, as you know. So wait,
yeah,
where did you grow up everywhere? Did you bounce
yeah. I
around
was
from
born. I was born in Okinawa in Japan, and my dad was
cool?
a F-15 pilot. So
Oh my Lord, that's so
fighter
cool.
guy, and my
Yeah.
grandpa was a fighter pilot too. And so yeah, I lived. I mean, as a kid, I born in Japan, then moved to Langley in Virginia, then down to Huntsville, Alabama, then to Destin, Florida, where Eglin Air Force Base is, and then to Nellis in Nevada,
Oh
and then
my gosh.
my dad got out of the Air Force after 20 years and moved to Atlanta to do corporate aviation. And so I went to high school and college in Georgia. I went to UGA. So
Oh, that's right.
finished the whole time, like golf has been a part of my life. It's like the one consistent thing I had, like moving around as a kid. My dad got really into golf when I was like probably 6 or 7 years old. We were living in Niceville and Eglin, down in
Okay.
Florida,
Sure, yeah.
and big golf community. We lived on a golf course actually, and I used to go to the junior golf like camps. And I remember my grandpa, he also loved golf. So every time we visit him, he had like a little like replica of the road hole at St. Andrews that he bought at some point, like
Right,
this
right,
cool
right.
little
Yeah.
like. I just like loved playing with it as a little kid and thought it was
Yeah.
super cool. So he sent me a an old like whatever like golf push cart thing,
Yeah.
like for
Like a
bag.
trolley, as they call them
Yeah,
over there. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
this thing was like, I mean, it was probably built in like the 50s, super old.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
used to bungee cord it to my bike when
Okay.
I was in Florida and ride it to the driving range, which was, like 10 blocks away, and like, go hit balls as a little kid. Just like amazing kind of core memories of just like playing, like being free on my own. It was like the one thing I was allowed to ride to by myself,
Yes,
you know.
sure.
And so just golf has always had that kind of like that part of my identity. And I remember the first time I like, hit a flushed iron shot. I was probably
Mm-hmm.
like seven, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a 5 iron. I had a set of Slozenger like clubs that my grandpa had cut down for me, and I still remember like the feeling in your hands when you hit one flush. I remember that 5 iron, and I was like hooked for the rest of my life. You're
Oh my
like,
gosh. And by the way, you'll never say it, but you're a great golfer now. So I'm just going to say it and we'll
well,
move
thank
on.
you,
But
buddy. It
but
means a lot coming from you, but
well, I thank you. I mean, so did you end up playing in high school too in Georgia?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I played in high school. I got to high school. So I'm 37 now. I got to high school. It was like 2000, so it was peak Tiger mania.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
summer he had won was winning everything. It was the Tiger Slam. I also played football, and so golf and football were kind of my sports. I was more serious about football,
Okay.
but I always kind of played golf. And with Tiger, I was like, I got obsessed. I'm like, I want to be like that
Right.
guy.
Right.
And so I went out, I played football in the fall, and then my freshman year of high school, I went out for the golf team, and I'll never forget it. I hit one out of bounds on the second hole, and I didn't make the team as
Oh
a
wow.
freshman,
Yeah.
and I was like, this is never going to happen again. And I literally like got a job working at a golf store. I was like a stock boy basically at a pro
Mhm.
golf discount, and went to practice every single day for the entire year. And when I was a sophomore, I got back to golf tryouts. I won it by 14 shots. So It's
Isn't it
amazing when you're a
funny?
kid,
It's the
you know,
Michael
how
Jordan
fast you can
story
improve.
right there. It's the MJ story. Yes.
Yeah, he's just like you get humbled, and I always been a pretty good athlete, so I was always, you know, one of the best players. Whatever sport I was playing, I was always pretty good. And to just like be bad at golf, it was like
Hmm.
not acceptable. And
No.
so, but you know, when you're like that age, you can improve so fast if you just put in the work.
Yeah.
And you know, we couldn't really afford. I couldn't afford to like buy range balls every day. It was like a we were part of this like kind of community private course system called
Right.
Canongate, but
Okay.
wasn't like LA private clubs. It was
Right. Right.
very
Right. Right.
middle class. But we couldn't, you know, I wasn't allowed to like buy range balls every time, you know, as like a freshman. And so I could hit balls a couple of times a week, but you know, chipping and putting was free.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I would just like get out there with a bag of, you know, shag bag and just, you know, entertain myself trying to hit like, you know, flop shots over a golf cart or onto the roof as
I
close as I could
remember those
stand to it.
days. Yep. Yep.
You know, like just these great memories. And then when I was old enough to drive, I got a job at that course as like a cart boy. And then I was, you know, our number one player on the high school team. You know, dreamed of being a pro golfer, obviously, like everybody does at that age. And I remember the Georgia State High School Golf Championships. I got into it, and I was the number one player. And Brian Harmon was in the field, and I think
No
Brian's like maybe,
kidding.
yeah, I think he's a year younger than me.
Okay.
And but you know, he's not like a super tall guy. And back
Mm-mm.
then, like he
Mm-mm.
was tiny. You know,
Yeah.
he had barely gone through puberty, but he was winning everything. Like he won like every Georgia thing you could win. He was like
Okay.
dominating. You even ask those guys today, like they're like Brian Harmon was a goat junior golfer.
That's
I mean,
crazy. I didn't know that. It's interesting.
oh, I mean, he might be like I gotta look it up, but he might be up there with like one of the winningest AJGA players. Like the kid was a goat,
Okay.
and
Okay.
but tiny left-handed like
Yeah. Yeah.
goat. And I remember like, okay, this is my first chance to kind of see like truly elite like junior golf.
Right.
And I want to say I shot like, you know, like one over, like I was probably like shot like 73 in the
Okay.
first round. And it was like I made like 250 feet of putts. I mean, it was like scrambling like out of nowhere. It was just like
Hmm.
scraping it together. And he beat me by 10 shots. I was like,
I knew that was coming. I knew that
you know,
was
you're like, all
coming.
right, I don't, you know, like I don't have a 63 in me, and
Right.
you know, and the guys that played with him were just saying like it felt like he shot like even par. I mean, it was so boring.
Yeah.
Didn't miss a green, you know, like a couple putts curl in, and all of a sudden he's 10 under, and you're like, or you know, whatever 9 under. So that was humbling. That was when I kind of realized, you know, maybe I'm not going to be a pro golfer. So I
What
ended up
about
going to
college? Did you think about going to college to play?
I did, you know, I guess I was sort of smart enough to know like I wanted to go to like a good school,
Right.
and my
Yeah.
parents were like, listen, like you could go play golf at like a D2 school or a one
Yeah.
double A, but like your education's more important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I ended up getting an academic scholarship to Georgia,
Oh, beautiful.
which ain't saying that much, you know, state school, but hey, you know,
Hey, Georgia's awesome. Don't put that
it,
down. Don't put the national champs over and over and over down. They got
that's
screwed
right.
this year, but that's a different story. We can talk
That's a
about.
different story. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. So I went to Georgia, and I worked actually the whole time at the Georgia golf course, which was cool.
Oh,
And
that's
that's I
cool.
could play for free and hit balls whenever I want. So you know, golf's like I like to say, and it's actually very true that there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about golf in some capacity. I'm the guy in the elevator at the hotel, like checking my swing when I'm
Isn't
alone in
it
the elevator.
funny? And you've manifested this because I
Yeah,
mean, I obviously golf is my biggest passion, and now it's my business with the podcast.
yeah,
So it's like you just don't know, but when you have a passion and it's bubbling inside, like oh man, I'd love to hear that. That's fantastic. And then after college, were you in during college? Were you kind of in a entertainment journalism world, or that didn't even cross your mind yet?
yeah. Yeah, no, I knew I wanted to make television shows.
Okay,
Actually, I
okay,
like movies, but I was never. I've always been like more commercially minded. Like
okay.
you know, you get around in college, you get around all like the art kids, you know, and
Hmm.
they're like indie music, indie film, you know, and I was like, I don't know, I like Armageddon, like that's like my favorite movie, you know. I
Me
was like,
too. Me too.
you
I know what
know,
you're
like
saying. Yeah.
I like explosions. I love Star
Right.
Wars. You know?
Right.
I remember when I saw Unforgiven the first time, which
Ooh.
won an Academy Award. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's the kind of art that I can see
Yeah.
making. But even that's like a massively, you know, it's like a Western, it's gunslinging. So I originally my plan was to like get into commercials actually. So I wanted
Okay.
to direct TV commercials. I was an intern when I was a senior in college. I interned at Cartoon Network,
Okay.
and worked like with the Adult Swim team, and was like making bumps and trying to build a reel as a director. And I made a couple of short films in college. They were all very like poppy and, not artsy, but
Right.
fun. I actually won this little student film festival with this like little love story I
Oh,
made,
wow. That's
uh,
cool.
which is on the internet somewhere, but I won't tell you what the title was because
I
it's
may have to
embarrassing.
find it and put it in the notes, in the show notes, but keep going, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. But so then I moved, I was either going to go to LA. I knew, look, Atlanta, like working at Cartoon Network was great. But, I saw kind of like the people at the corner offices there. And I'm like, I want to know that if I want to do this for a living, like that the corner office in Atlanta is like not the end goal, like I want to
Right,
be
right.
somebody. And not that these people weren't super talented executives, but it was like, I want to see how I can stack up in the big leagues. So
Yeah.
it was either going to be moving to LA or moving to New York. I ended up picking New York. And the day after graduation, I like packed all my stuff. I had a Toyota Tacoma. I like filled the truck up with all my shit, drove to New York City, like rented an apartment, an illegal sublease on Craigslist with like 4 roommates, and like sold the car like that week to pay
Yeah.
for the rent. Yeah.
Yeah. You
And
were all
then
in.
I was all in, and
Yeah.
so I was directing sort of digital stuff. I ended up like creating this web TV show called the Engadget Show, which was all about tech, like gadgets
Yes,
and
I
stuff.
know that show. We talked about that. That's right. Yeah, I know that
Yeah,
show.
and that was
Yeah.
like, and then that led to this deal with Google to make a bunch of sports programming. That's I always like love sports, and then my company sort of merged into Vox Media, which at the time was just getting started. And so I came into the company as like head of video and ran all of our programming. And we went from like SB Nation, the sports website, to launching The Verge, to launching like to buying Eater and Curved, and now it's like Vox is a giant like mega media
Right.
company.
Right.
But to kind of come full circle, I was always still obsessed with golf. I'm living in New York. I got no money. I used to like take the train from the Long Island Railroad like on a Saturday morning at like 5 a.m. with my golf bag like out to Bethpage and
Oh
get a
yeah.
taxi. But you could always get on the black course as a single, which I realized on the weekend, which was super fun. So I'd go out
Yeah.
there, Bethpage, be like gone all day. It
How
was
hard is
super.
that course, by the way? I've never played that, but is it as
It's
hard as they
it's
say?
it's still the hardest course I've ever played. Like
Really? Wow.
hands
You
down.
played
Yeah, like
everywhere.
played Winged Foot. I played like championship course there. I played a lot of courses that have hosted majors. Nothing is as brutally just long and difficult as Bethpage, especially when it's like
Right.
wet.
Right.
Like in the summer it rains a lot. So if it gets soft, like that rough is so brutal. And
Yeah.
it's the kind of course that just beats up on you. And when you finally think that you're like in the home stretch, like that's when it's the toughest hold. Like 14, you gotta like it's this, yeah, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 are just brutal.
Yeah.
And once you get to 15, you climb that hill.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like a 480-yard par 4 with this tiny fairway and fescue on either side. You got to bomb a drive, then you're hitting like a mid and a long iron, like up this hill. You climb all the way to the top.
Right.
You come back down the hill, then you got to climb up again, up 17. And then by the time you get to 18, you're just like gassed. And
Yeah.
it just, yeah, Bethpage rules. Playing well at Bethpage is like, it's still something that has eluded me after all these years. But
Is the Ryder Cup there next? Is that right?
it's going to be madness. Yeah.
Oh,
Ryder Cup of Bethpage is going to be
that is
like,
going to
I
be
worry
insane.
that someone's going to die. Like, it is gonna be,
Well, we better have blood in the water because we
yeah.
screwed up so bad on picks and no offense, captains. And like, it was the weirdest thing. Everyone took 3 weeks off. I mean, I know we'll get into it because I know you were on the inside there, but I was so embarrassed how we just got shellacked there. And I know it's all numbers. I was talking to,
Yeah.
we had Chris Zambri on the podcast, who's the head of the U.S. National Developmental Team. We finally have one now. We've never had one.
Yep.
And he's
Thank
an
you, Mike
analytic.
Juan.
Yeah, and he's an analytics guy, and he said that Molinari studied all the numbers for the PGA Tour and the European Tour and all DP and all that, and said that the Europeans excel at, hitting the ball straight and certain irons from certain distances, and so that's how they set up the course in Rome.
Yeah.
Exactly and it worked like a charm, right?
Well, look, you know what Luke Donald said that the data paid off the most on the first hole at Marcus Simone. So
yeah.
he said they got it was some crazy number, like multiple, like I don't know, it was like I want to say the number 11 stands out in my head, but it was like they got 11 whatever points or lead.
Yep.
Off of that, like they were up in 11 matches on that one hole alone.
Yeah.
And then you're starting from behind, like if you're winning that first hole. And what they realize is that the American team just by, for the most part, aren't that comfortable hitting draws like
Yeah.
off the tee. They're mostly faders. But if you look at the like Europeans, like Rory hits a big draw with his iron or with his
Mm-hmm.
driver.
Mm-hmm.
Fleetwood can hit big draws.
Yeah.
Oberg hits draws. Like Europeans are much more comfortable sort of moving it right to left off the tee. And if you look at the way they set up that hole, like it really was tight
Yeah.
off the fade. So a guy like
Right.
Scotty Scheffler just neutralizes his best, his
Yeah.
one of his best like weapons, which is his driver, because you got to basically take it at those bunkers on the left side.
Yeah.
And it's a slight dogleg left. And so if you miss it, even if you're a little right, you're going to run through the fairway. You have a really tough shot. The rough is crazy over there. If you hang it out, you don't fade it, you're stuck in the bunker. You had to hit a perfect drive if you're hitting a fade. And they changed the routing of that hole. They like moved it around. I
I
think
heard that. I heard
honestly,
that.
used to be a dogleg right, now it's a dogleg left. And that probably was the deciding factor, just that amount of data on the first
What's
hole.
your opinion on the home team manipulating the golf course like that? Are you fine with that?
Listen, I think that all's fair in the Ryder Cup. Like I love the
Okay,
Ryder
I do
Cup.
too.
I've now been to every single golf thing you can go to, and there's just nothing like the energy of a Ryder Cup. I mean, to me, it's like the Ryder Cup, the Masters, and the 16th hole Waste Management are like the three can't miss golf experiences as a fan, all for very different reasons. But I do think that the biggest concern, and I know this is something that is sort of bubbling under the surface, is like it may not be possible to win in a way Ryder Cup anymore, like because of the data, and
Yeah.
and it wouldn't shock me if Team USA like blows out Europe in Bethpage, and like and so they may have to make it more competitive, and in order to do that, I've heard ideas like a neutral party sets up the course, or there's some kind of like trade-off where it's less of an advantage, because now like the last three Ryder Cups have been kind of blowouts, and
correct.
always been the home team. So we'll see if it's a blowout in Bethpage, then I think that there probably will be
They should do something, have a joint committee if this keeps happening, have a joint committee, set it up just square and let them play golf. Cause it's like, it's not fun if there's a complete blowout every 2 years. That's boring.
No.
What was your take from the Ryder Cup? We were going to get to that, but like, what are some of the juicy things that you saw? There was the hat gate and there was the caddy gate, like of all, anything you can talk about all that drama.
Yeah, I mean, it was all just the atmosphere at a Ryder Cup is so different from every other event, because normally inside the ropes at a major or at a PGA Tour event, the only people inside the ropes are like broadcasters and like a couple camera crews, and it's very, very like you're not inside the ropes. The Ryder Cup, there's like 300 people inside the ropes. It's the family of the players. It's all the other members of the team who aren't playing at that time. It's the captains riding around in their golf carts. I mean, there's hundreds of people inside the ropes, and in Europe especially, they're kind of like go wherever you want. So
that they have a laissez-faire kind of thing.
Yeah, you just run, and you can sit kind of wherever you want, and it would be like everyone was running down. It was crazy. And I remember I was on 18 when Cantlay hit that putt to beat like Rory, and
unbelievable.
It was like Rory. Who was he playing with? It was Fitz, maybe. And when he nailed that putt, it was insane. I was sitting there like next to the bunker, like right actually where Patrick had hit from, and just being there in that energy. I thought there was going to be like a fist fight. I mean, when LaCava was like standing there staring Rory down. I've seen a lot of wild shit. That was like a little. I mean, it was clearly like, I think, a little uncalled for. I mean, he walked all the way across the green, and it would have been fine, but he just didn't back down. Like Rory kind of got in his face, and he like stepped closer to him, and that was like you see it on television. It was an intense moment. The Hatgate thing was funny because it all like happened over the course of like an hour. Like that story got published that morning, and an hour later, like the Europeans are like singing songs about Cantlay and getting paid and a hat.
Dude,
where's your
social
hat?
media, right? Social media.
Yeah, I'm like how did they get the word out that fast? It's but it's just the Europeans with the songs and the chants, and like it's a fun, really cool atmosphere. It reminded me of being like an SEC football game kind of thing, super tribal, but it was awesome, and even like even the guys the guys on the US, like Max Homa, like they lost, but when he made that putt after taking that drop, like that's like probably the most excited he's ever been, like it
Yeah.
just, you just every putt takes on so much weight when you're like playing for a team and not just for yourself. And it's just the best. Like it was, I wish it would have been closer. There was a period of time on Sunday where like it felt like for about 35, 40 minutes that
Yep.
like a couple of these matches held and they flipped like two, that the US was in it for sure. Um, but to credit to Europe, like they came out firing. They were super well prepared. It was also like just like Rory was kind of peaking at that
Yeah.
point. Hovland was peaking.
Well,
Rom was
and
playing great.
Scheffler was gagging, and I don't know
Yeah,
why, Jordan Spieth playing poorly, and they brought Justin Thomas on to
yeah,
be his partner playing poorly. I mean, we really McGinley talked about how, when he was the captain, Luke Donald was the top Ryder Cup performer in history, and he told Luke, "You're not on the team because you're not playing well." But
yeah.
in America, we are so sensitive, and we just have to let And I think we made some bad decisions on our team when sometimes you're like, "Hey, man, you're just not hot right now."
Yeah, well, and then I do think that there were two factors that didn't get a lot of. Well, one, I think Jordan was struggling with a wrist injury that
Yeah,
wasn't,
I heard that too.
that was really bothering him, and but how do you leave Jordan Spieth off the team?
Yeah,
He's like the
yeah,
heart and soul of that team. And then JT, I think, actually ended up vindicating himself. Like he played very well
yeah,
relative to the rest of the players. He was kind of a bright spot, and I think like he showed up when they needed him to. I think he won. I think he was like 2-1 or something. I mean, he played
something
well.
like that.
He
Yeah,
had a winning record, so like
yeah.
he definitely vindicated himself. The other thing that never got covered is like there was some viral outbreak in the USA team room like early in
Yes,
the
I was
week.
going to ask you
Like
about that. Yeah,
yeah, and like it doesn't really, we didn't talk about that much in the show because it was like we didn't have much visual evidence of it. But like it started with Ricky Fowler, like got really sick and feverish, and it was some like influenza virus or something like that, and it like went through the whole team room like
oh
really
man,
quickly, and
yeah,
guys weren't sleeping well, and I think that was like a real factor because they just came out so flat because they were all like recovering. I mean, they were like juicing them with like vitamins and just trying to
I
get like
heard
to
IVs
feel better.
everywhere. Yeah,
It was bad. And like, and then the other thing is I think that they did, they showed up in Rome on like Monday,
yeah,
and
that was
you
so
know, and
weird.
and it's
Yeah,
just a long way to fly. Like it's
yeah,
jet lag. I mean, the Europeans have been there for like weeks,
yeah,
they were already adjusted to it. So I mean, you've flown international, like you get there on Monday, you
yeah,
land around noon, like your body, it takes 2 or 3 days to get
yeah,
adjusted, and then but they're like programmed to the hilt. It's not like they just had 4 days to kind of chill out and relax. Like they've got
no,
dinner, they've got events, they've got to go do pictures. Like, and I think that I know some of the kind of complaints from inside the locker room was just like, hey, maybe we should like we do another one over here like this. We should come like a week early,
no shit. I
But
don't know why they didn't do that anyway.
well,
I
it's
mean,
it's it's hard to ask a professional who's like not getting paid to be there, like
yeah,
hey, I'm gonna take 2 weeks out of your life just so you can adjust to jet lag. It's just,
yeah,
but anyway, but they whatever. This is kind of all fodder for like, is it even possible to win in a
yeah,
way? And I actually think that the jet lag thing like actually is an advantage to the Europeans because
of
most of them
course.
live in the US,
Yeah.
and
Did
so
you, how was your access for the Ryder Cup? I know you've been at all the big events the last couple of years. Did you have pretty good access there?
yeah, it was great. I mean, we it was publicized that we were not allowed in the team room.
Okay.
That was a dramatic kind of change of what we kind of expected and
Uh,
agreed to. But there were, I'll be generous in saying a handful of players, not really a handful, but like that did not want us there, and made it very clear that
oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
they did not want us in there, and that ultimately, like, I think forced the hand of the team and basically said, look, hey, we told you to be in there, we can't let you
Yeah.
in there more. But that sucked. But honestly, I don't think you see it in the show. Like so much of the action is on the course, and so
Yeah.
much of like the players aren't like at every other event that we film. It's all individuals, so they'll be there. They have their own warm up thing. Then they leave when they're done. Then we maybe ride home with them and hang out there. But the Ryder Cup, like they all are on the same bus at like 5 a.m. in the morning. They're
Yeah.
all on course the entire time. The guys that aren't playing, they're not like hanging around the team room. They're out like watching or walking or riding in carts. And so because we were inside the ropes, like we were getting real time reaction, filming with like the wives and the other players who weren't playing. Like it was awesome, like seeing it from the inside. So I
Oh,
was I was really bummed going over there that we didn't have the sort of team room access that we thought we were going to get, but it ended up not mattering because so much of the drama happened like out on the course.
Oh
So
yeah,
like
it did. Especially you seem to like I don't know what it is the last 2 years, but like you have entered some of the most fun drama ever. Jump back real quick. So how was Full Swing born? How did that get going? And then I want to hear a little bit about the first
Yeah,
season.
yeah. So I'll tell the quick story. Back in it was 12 years ago, when I was running the digital content for Vox. The PGA Tour was looking for partners to help them launch like a digital media thing, and so we were one of those digital media companies that got brought down to Palm Beach to meet with them and talk about our advice on how to create content for sort of like millennials back then.
Yeah.
And so I obviously led our pitch process because I was a diehard golfer, and we ended up not getting the business, but created a relationship with the media team at the PGA Tour, and they loved how much of a fan I was of the sport. It was like clear that I understood golf on like a real like obsessive level, and so I just stayed in touch with that exec. His name's Chris Wandell. He was like a VP of media at the PGA Tour. He and I just kind of hit it off and became friends. And every year I'd go to CES. They'd be at CES. We'd play golf like in Vegas somewhere. Um, and then a couple of years later, I moved out to LA to start the film and TV studio for Vox Media. Started making television shows, and of course, like started calling Chris. Said, hey, we should do like a Hard Knocks on the PGA Tour. That's like my dream project.
Oh, fascinating.
The
Yeah.
original plan was to do it like quick turn style, so we would shoot it, and then it would come out like Wednesday before the next event started, like really
Okay.
fast turnaround. And I pitched them for like 3 or 4 years, like once a year, not like crazy, but just say, hey, is it time? And it was always like, we love this idea, but never gonna fly. And the tour was really concerned with its image, like back then under the Tim Finchem era, it was very much like guys aren't supposed to be cussing, like it's a gentleman's game. It was still
Oh
very,
yeah.
like
Okay. Yeah.
they were hyper protective of the players. And but I'll never forget. It was 2019 January. We're at CES. Chris and I played golf at Shadow Creek. It was my first time playing Shadow, which was awesome.
Great
And
course. Yeah.
Jay Monahan had just become commissioner like earlier, like I guess at the very end of the previous year. And I brought it up to Chris in the first tee. I said, hey, I think it's time to make the doc series. And he's like, you know what? I think Jay would go for it. And over the course of that 18-hole round, we like hashed out what would become Full Swing. We like
Oh,
figured
I
out what it
love
would look
golf. I
like.
love this sport so much.
I know. It was the most consequential round of golf that I think I've ever played.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I was like the only score in my gin, like the entire history of my gin. It's the only score that I have in that system that's in the 90s.
Well, of course. You're
I
like,
shot
here we
I
go, here
shot
we go, here we go.
92. 92 at Shadow. I was mortified. I don't think I made a single par. It was embarrassing.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but that led to like a handshake on the 18th hole where we said, okay, let's do this. And then 3 months later, I was out at Ponte Vedra for the Players Championship. I met with the senior team at the tour and sort of, explained that I would need kind of editorial control, but that they could trust me because I was, one, I had this long relationship with one of their execs, and they believed me, and they signed a deal that gave me the exclusive rights to make a documentary series on the PGA Tour. And from there, it was like getting players to say yes. And the first player to sign up was Ricky Fowler. And then I got Tony Finau and a couple other guys. Justin Thomas was in that list. And then it was like get the majors on board. COVID happened at the end of that, right at the beginning of the following year. So
Right.
that gave us sort of a little bit more time because we're like, okay, well, we're not going to film it during the COVID year. So it was all about getting Augusta and the majors on board. So I also, one of the other vivid memories, I remember getting on a Zoom at like 6 in the morning in LA during COVID, like with Augusta National,
Oh,
and they're like 9
yeah.
o'clock their time. And they said yes. And from
I mean,
there,
that's incredible, by the way. Like, you got the Masters on board. I thought no freaking chance of all
I
their
know
history of like really restrictive. You can't call them fans, they're patrons and all this stuff. How was going to Augusta with the inside scoop? Was it just magical?
it was awesome. I mean, I'm from, sort of grew up in Georgia. And so that term has always been, like many golf fans, like it kind of has a special place in my heart. And I'd been once when I was a kid, like my best friend's dad had died of ALS, and they asked me to spread his ashes on Amen Corner, and they found out I was going
Oh,
with
that's
my
awesome.
my
Yeah.
grandpa, so I did that for him, and it just like so. And so I told that story in the meeting, and they could tell that I understood and respected the sort of what the Masters stood for, and then I
Yeah.
wasn't there to like do a hit piece on it. And to be honest, like my pitch to them was like, look, I love the Masters, but the show isn't about the Masters. It's about what it's like to play in the Masters
Yeah.
from the player's point of view.
Yeah.
And I think that really put them at ease because it's like all the tournament stuff, all the special things that make the Masters special. We're not doing a deep dive on that stuff. We're doing a deep dive on the experience of competing in it as a competitor
Yeah.
and the little moments of like what it feels like to arrive on site, where you park and who you see and who you talk to and where the warm-up stuff and how that comes together to bring that to like nobody really ever seen that. But it wasn't like I had to go do a history of Augusta National to explain that. You know, you just in a montage in a Jim Nantz voiceover, you can show audiences that this place is different and this place is special. And that was sort of part of the pitch to Augusta. And they, to their credit, like totally understood what we were trying to do and have been amazing. Like, you know, and I know that surprises people because, you know, they do have a reputation for, you know, perfectionism, but we like get along amazing with them and they've been great to us and
I mean,
give us
that's
real
amazing.
access. And
I was bragging on you the other day. I was like, I don't think people understand, as a former golf agent, sports lawyer, like to get the players on board, which includes their agents, to get the tournaments on board, to get, you know, this on board and that. I just cannot believe you put all this together and actually made it work. And then when did you start hearing about Live? Was this mid shooting? Because that is the greatest gift you've ever gotten in your
yeah,
life, was the Live tour. Like, when
well,
did
so
you start hearing about that?
it's interesting. We're recording this podcast right now. It's during the week of the Genesis.
Yeah.
And so 2 years ago this week was when the Live news first broke. It's when the Alan Shipnuck quote from his book got released about Phil Mickelson and
Oh,
sort
yeah.
of blew the Live stuff like into
Yeah.
front and center. And as we started filming for season one, like it was definitely a thing that was circling around, but nobody thought it was gonna actually happen.
Okay.
And
Got you.
but when Phil left and that all went down, it was like this week, and I remember sitting in the media center at Riviera, which is one of the nicer like media centers. It's in like a ballroom in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Everybody's phone starts blowing up, and you start seeing people like real time, like, oh my God, what's happening? And they're like, did you see this quote? And oh my God, this is really real. And it's like it all happened in like one day, and then all of a sudden the whole world of golf just flipped on its head. And then as we filmed the show, it was like it became like this weird like loyalty test. Like guys are, you know, there's a certain you've been out there. There's a certain camaraderie on the PGA Tour where like, you know, like yeah, you might not be all best friends, but it's kind of like being seniors in high school. Like you know, you're the top dogs. You've all earned your way out there. There's some mutual respect. There's like little cliques, but it's like a general, you know, type A people out there, like athletes, you know, and all of a sudden you're like sitting in your locker and the next door neighbor, like you think maybe is he going to Live?
Right.
Is he gonna get $100 million? Like
Right. Yeah.
it was nobody knew where people sat. And then, you know, then the whole argument of like, do you take the money or not? What do you play for? Is it for legacy? Is it for championships? Is it for cash? Is this a job to you? It all like happened in real time as we were filming. And it was amazing. It was an incredible gift from a story perspective because it just leveled up the stakes for everybody from being about like making a cut or winning a major to like, what do you play for? Which was
it
a
was
really
nasty. It was definitely got nasty there. Did Liv give you access as it started being born? I mean, were you able to get involved with them a little bit?
We were already filming with a couple of their athletes, like Brooks and DJ, and so we just kept going with them, mostly focused on the majors because Liv hadn't even like really started yet.
Right,
so
that's right. Yeah.
You know, trying to like, do we film at Live events? Do we not? Like, you know, really, we were like, what's it going to be like at the majors? Because these guys were all in the majors already, and so we just kind of kept going with that. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I'll say this now, like, you know, going into season 2, which you know just come out, it's like you see in the show, you know, we were there on the June 6th like announcement of the potential, you know, the framework agreement of a merger between the PGA Tour and PIF. That actually was even more dramatic than the Live like exodus. Because the Live exodus was kind of like it fit the season 1 Live story arc kind of fit a narrative that I think the PGA Tour players themselves kind of could rationalize in their head. They're like, the guys that are taking the money are like, fair or not, like kind of 40-year-olds that you know, not that they're washed up. I mean, Phil was the defending PGA champion. You know, it's not like he's washed up by any stretch, but it's like, you know, that was an amazing kind of like fluke accomplishment, once
Yeah.
in a lifetime kind of like amazing moment. He's on the tail end of his career. Guys
Yeah.
like Ian Poulter, amazing golfers, great Ryder Cuppers. Like he's got kids in college, like older guys that are sort of like, hey, this is one last chance to like try something new in golf or get paid a lot of money or whatever their thing was. Once like DJ left and Brooks left, I mean Brooks, I think like never wasn't sure if his body was ever going to be the same again, and I
Yeah.
totally get that. You see that in the show. He's he was really injured and really struggling, and like I think for him it was like, well, if I can't be the same physical person that I was before, I might as well like do this. And he's always kind of marched at the beat of his own drum.
Well, and we
That
talked about on
said,
the podcast that, his mental game in the episode you did was so incredibly bad. I thought to myself, his career's over. And the
totally.
fact that he came back and won the freaking PGA, I am so impressed with that. Because when I hear athletes self-talk that bad, I know
Yeah,
he's injured too, but I'm like, it's hard to come back from that. And to come back
totally.
and win the PGA, so impressed with that guy. And
Yeah, he's so impressive. And there's something about Brooks that I do think he needs. I mean, again, I'm not going to psychoanalyze him, and I know him, but not that well. It's like, but I do think he is driven by this feeling of being like disrespected or being an
yes,
underdog.
yes, I
There's
agree.
a Michael
Yes.
Jordan-esque thing
Yep.
to him. I don't know if he's like as calculated about it as Michael Jordan is, but there's certainly a thing where I think he's more comfortable being like an underdog. Like I
Yeah.
think, and when you win 4 majors in 2.5 years, you become the favorite, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden everybody in golf is just like, oh my god, we love you, bro, all
Yeah.
over you. And I think
Right,
he just
right.
I think he just hated all of that.
Yeah.
I think he thinks that everybody in professional golf are a bunch of fakers and a bunch of
Yeah.
fakes and lame and soft and like, but when you got like these iconic people, oh, Brooks, I think he needed to reset his own expectations, and in some way, potentially, the show, from season one, his being so sort of down in the dumps, was like a way to kind of reset the
Yeah.
world's expectations for him.
Yeah.
And then he gets healthy, and he comes back, and now he can play free because he's the last person you'd expect. And now he's feeling good. He's going to step on your throat,
Oh
like
God, he's
it's
a killer. I mean, just his move. I just love watching his golf swing with the little compression going down. I mean, he is a work of art, man. I love
yeah,
that. So season two, did you get some live mixed in or did you just
yeah.
PGA Tour it?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of live players that are that pop up throughout the show, particularly at
Okay.
the majors. The big, we have Dustin Johnson obviously in the show. Like he's his storyline this year is fun to see him. We do that. Dustin is alongside Ricky Fowler, and it's fun to compare and contrast sort of the decisions that they made. Obviously Ricky staying on the PGA Tour, Dustin going to live, and kind
Hmm.
of the like how living with that decision on both sides.
Right.
And DJ is just like the coolest dude in golf. He's just so chill. But anyway, the interesting thing, so kind of going back to the live stuff from season one, everybody could kind of rationalize the tour players that like these were, other than maybe DJ and Brooks, but generally it was like guys in their 40s.
Yeah.
They're like, fine, fine, fine. I understand that, and they're like taking the money, and there's some moral argument that
Of
was being
course.
bandied around, and I think people kind of feel good about it. Then, like this year, June 6th comes around, and everybody on the PGA Tour felt like they had the rug pulled out from under them, and no one more
Yeah.
than Rory McIlroy. We're
Oh
like,
yeah. He
you know,
backtracked like crazy after that.
well, you're just like I've been out here, the face of this whole thing, and now you're gonna go behind my back. I'm not in the room, and you make me look like a hypocrite. And what are we even doing here? And
Yeah.
and I think that just from a storytelling perspective, June 6th just was like it's somewhat, I don't know. I found it to be way more interesting and compelling seeing it from the inside, because also like the live stuff was like it was like dripped out, like when Cam Smith left after the Open Championship. Like people asked him when he won at St. Andrews, "Are you going to live?" And he was like, "That's not a nice question." But everybody knew. I mean, there were
Yeah.
rumors that
Yeah.
people would leave. There were rumors that would live. Nobody expected the PIF announcement. Like
No. No.
it was so secret, and like and everything, you worked in pro golf, like everything leaks. Like you can't,
Yeah.
you send a top secret memo out to the players,
No. And their
it's leaked
caddy is tweeting the guy at the Golf Channel immediately. Yeah,
like
it's
30
over.
seconds later. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
exactly.
over. Yeah.
So the fact that they were able to keep that secret, and the fact that it blindsided everybody. So I mean, it was so I was like in a workout here in LA, and I got a call from Netflix at 7 in the morning, and I told the exec that I thought the website had been hacked. I was like, "There's no way this is. There's no way."
Well, Monahan, he's lost all credibility. I don't know how he still has his job. I know you can't talk about that, but I can say that. Like, you can't do that. And then he takes a leave of absence, and it's like, they need to re-up their leadership because between you and me, the PGA Tour is in deep trouble. Wells Fargo, our longest sponsors out, like they are in trouble. Do 12 events, co-branded, live in PGA Tour, world ranking points, done. That's all you have to do. Just get it going because PJ Tour is on the losing end of this right now. I mean, they've got a few interesting stories, but you look at the leaderboard, you don't know 15 through 20. I hate to say it. I'm sorry, but they're not that they're not talented, but all of our heroes of your era, my era are on live right now.
I
And
know,
it's
I
it's
know.
it's it's depressing to me because get them back together, get this fake framework going. So
Yeah,
anyway, I know I don't
no,
want
I
you to
agree with
get you
you
in trouble, but
on.
yeah.
No, I mean, I completely agree that the golf fans are the losers right now in all
Yes,
this.
yes.
And honestly, they need to not let golf become tennis and
Yeah.
get bifurcated or
Yes, yes.
boxing. Like
Yes.
look what happened. And there's not a guarantee that golf's going to be a popular sport in
No.
20 years. So
Nope.
how do you? So I mean, I think that the general consensus is, yeah, they got to bring these guys back together. I think Jay gave us a lot of access to him during that process, and it's really, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to watch
Yeah.
somebody kind of clearly dealt like a terrible hand, and traditionally being the commissioner of the PGA Tour is like a pretty sweet gig,
Yeah,
like
it's a cush gig. You make a fortune and you just like you're the ambassador to golf. This
yeah, and
this
you
got
get your
dirty.
Augusta membership when you leave, and
Yeah,
there's only
this
been
got dirty.
there's only been two of them ever in the history of the PGA Tour, Dean David
Yeah.
and Ted Fincham. And none of them had to deal with what Jay's had to
No.
deal with,
No.
and I think there's definitely an attitude of like let him see if he can land the plane, and like
Yeah.
there's a world where I think they can get it done, bring it back together. It's like the future of the game secured, and now there's all this new investment, and they've been able to create a for-profit enterprise that has real upside for the players. I think the incentives are well aligned. I think it's just there's a lot of egos in the room, and a
Yeah.
lot of players have strong opinions in both directions. It's just a hard constituency to navigate.
Yeah, that's
So,
a tough one. What from season two, what's your like favorite, funnest story, wildest thing that happened? Anything you can tell us about
I mean, my
what
favorite story is actually about June 6th. So, just to like that day. Okay, again,
okay.
I get a phone call. I tell the exec from Netflix that I think the website was hacked. There's no way
Right.
this is real, and then it shows up on CNBC, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is actually happening. The funny story about that day is we have our producing team, but then we had these two APs, associate producers, that have been with the show since the first season,
Yeah.
and one of those APs has been like pitching us and our team for like the last year and a half. Like, I want to produce a shoot. Like, I want to do my own shoot. I'm
Right.
ready. Give me the
Right.
promote me. Let me run a team in the field for like something like low stakes, and
Right.
we'll
Yeah.
see if it like you can see where this is going. So we finally are like, okay, kid, like we're gonna give you your shot. We're gonna give you a little field team. We're gonna send you up to Toronto for the RBC Canadian Open on June 6th.
Oh, June
And,
6th, right? Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're it's like the kid's like in his 20s, and we're like, we're gonna follow Ludwig Oberg, who we thought had a chance. We were looking at the Ryder Cup all year. We were like, this kid could be a dark horse for the Ryder Cup. Like, he's coming onto the PGA Tour. We want you to go follow him for his, I believe it was the U.S. Open qualifying that Monday somewhere in Canada,
Right.
and then his first day that Tuesday as a PGA Tour member. We were like, that could be an interesting story. Meet him in the parking lot. Go with him first time as a member. He's getting his badge. He's like putting his number down, his bank account.
Such
I
a
mean, it's all
great story. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like a really easy, like, okay, what's it like to be a rookie playing your first event? You don't know where to park, you don't know where to
Mhm.
go, everything's kind of wide eyed.
Right.
This kid, I think everybody thought like Oberg was going to be a star. So we're like, cool, this will be the moment. The lowest stakes possible shoot, like the chances of that getting used are like
So you
very low.
thought.
So we tell the kid, like, yeah, just go up there and do this one. It's a total layup. Like, it'll be great. And of course, it's June 6th, and he's the only cameras that we have at the tour event. This
Oh,
little. So talk about like battlefield promotion,
yeah.
So he calls me and he's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Just do not stop rolling. Like, roll on everything. Try and
Right.
sneak a
Right.
camera into the. Jay's gonna fly him to do a press camera. Try to get a camera in there. like just get real-time reaction from everybody. Don't stop filming. And like he said, he's walking down the hallway and like it's like a disaster movie. Like all of a sudden people are running the other way.
Zombies
He goes
everywhere.
he goes into the locker room and there's like everybody's like sitting there with their mouth like on the floor
Hmm.
watching Jay and Yasser on CNBC. So that was, and we had a bunch of other cameras rolling that day with like a bunch of other big stars and down at PGA Tour HQ, and that was amazing. But the fact that the that kid was there in real time was hilarious to
Oh
me.
my
And
God, that's a great story. I love that. I love that. And I'm not going to let you get away without talking about your Super Hot Pepper show, by the way. What the heck? I just finished that. That thing was amazing. Just a little shout out to that special. That's so that world frightens me, that whole Super Hot Pepper world. So anyway, I thought that was
yeah,
super
thank
cool.
you. Yeah, it's on you can watch it on Hulu. It's that's been a really fun one. We made that over the last year and a half. And just the idea of like originally that show started out as more of a competition show and then it evolved into this like more immersive doc series because you just realize like so many people in that world are sort of recovering addicts and
Oh
like
yeah.
replace like a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction with like a capsaicin addiction. And
Oh, it's a cult. It's definitely a cult. And after the guy that does the Wings show, this whole
yeah.
eating hot stuff has become cool. I couldn't watch it. It was too much for me. I was sweating the whole time. But I saw your name and I'm like, buddy, did you do this too? And you're like, yep. So I
Yes, sir.
recommend that highly too.
Buddy.
Um, so what else? So you're going to keep going on with this as long as you can because golf is so fascinating right now. I mean, if you did this 10 years ago, I mean, I don't think it would have been this cool. But what else are you working on? Do you have some other stuff you got in the can you can talk about or?
Yeah, I've always got some stuff in the hopper. I'm definitely, I want to do more with golf. So,
Yeah,
full swing, we're excited to hopefully make this show for the next decade or
yeah,
more. And I think, plenty of unresolved big questions about the future of pro golf. And to come back to what you said earlier about live versus the PGA Tour, I think the one thing the PGA Tour has that can't be understood. Well, there's two things that I think can't be understated about the tour. One, they have history and they have iconic like memories. And there's just something about watching like Nick Taylor make a putt to win the WM Phoenix Open. Like most casual fans have never heard of Nick Taylor, but
yeah,
they recognize that tournament. They know it's in Phoenix. They know it's this time of year. They kind of have some impression that there's like this crazy rowdy party. And there's just like there's stakes into it in a real way, in a life changing way that made that moment, I think, bigger than what is possible right now on Live. Not a knock against Live, but just like that history and the heritage. They've been playing that tournament for 50 years in the same place. Same thing with the RBC Heritage at
yeah,
Harbour Town and Pebble and Stadium Course at Sawgrass. And like there's just something about the stakes of that. And then the PGA Tour also has like an ability to generate new stars
yeah,
that can't be understated. And I think like if you look at the like I was down at Phoenix Open last a couple weeks ago, and it was rained out. There was like hail, and so I'm sitting in the media center, and Golf Channel just had like a rerun of like I think it was like the 2016 like Players Championship where Webb
yes,
Simpson
yeah,
won,
yeah,
stuff like that, and that was like what was it 2016? So not even that long ago, and it's like unrecognizable half the leaderboard.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's Tiger Woods and Webb Simpson and a young Ricky Fowler and I guess maybe just tough, but like the rest of the people, it's like you forget about all these names,
yeah,
and you realize a guy like Colin Morikawa's only been on the PGA Tour for like 4 years.
yeah. It's
Like
crazy.
and you can just create superstars so fast if you rise quickly, and that pipeline of people into the tour has always been its greatest asset in generating new stars, and I think our show can help cement those new stars. So anyway, but yeah, I want to do more in golf. I've got some ambitious ideas and things that I'm working on, and just focusing on making the best possible versions of full swing for as long as we possibly can.
I mean, it is amazing. It is just one of my favorite shows of all time, and I love talking. I could spend hours talking to you, but I know that you got to go on and work on your next show. So anytime you want to come on and promote something, feel free. And
Love it.
I'm excited for March 6th, buddy. I'm gonna start pumping things up and getting ready for that. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Brock.
All right,
Really
buddy.
appreciate you having me, brother.
Thanks, Chad.